Hey everyone, Ryan Young, Kama Jiu-Jitsu. So I hope you're doing well. So what I wanted to cover today was, actually I just kind of want to comment on a video that's gone viral, and it has to do with, I think it's a school in Brazil where they choke a guy unconscious, and the title makes it sound like he's getting bullied. And I guess you could interpret it that way, but if you look at somebody, with my experience in seeing this type of thing before, I don't know if I'd go so far as to call it a bullying incident. Well, so here's what happened, right? It seems pretty shocking, right? And I get a lot of people are shocked and appalled by it. But here's the thing, we live in this world where it's so easy to become shocked and appalled at everything in life, right? For those of you who aren't in the US, right, everybody's shocked and appalled at anything that the president says, President Trump here, right? And it also goes the other way too. It's easy to inflame people. And, if you look at it, if you step back and you think in terms of common sense, would you, if you ran a school, permit someone to film someone getting choked out unconscious if it were in a malicious way? I don't know. I mean, I certainly wouldn't. I think something is seriously wrong. And I think that's what people think. People think that it was a malicious thing. Now, I'm not defending this guy because I wasn't there. All I can tell you is what I see myself. Here's what I see, and I will go step by step with it. Number one, the guy gets a choke put on him, white belt. 4 stripes, gets put on by a purple belt, right? Choke is on, he's tapping. He taps 4 or 5 times, right? And the guys that are on the other side of the camera, whose faces you cannot see, are telling this purple belt, hey, stop. And the purple belt saying, no, hold on, right? He chokes him, the guy goes unconscious. Then what happens? He releases it. Then they go up and they try to revive him, right? Which is natural. Once a guy falls asleep, you try to revive him, right? Get him back up. You don't want him to stay unconscious, right? So they revive him. But then what happens? They move him to another spot, and the same purple belt gets back on him and starts going for a mount, and then sets up an armbar or a choke. He does an armbar and a choke. I can't remember right now what order it was in again. But this time, he sets a choke in, the guy taps, he lets it go. He sets an armbar in, he taps, he lets it go. He didn't hold either one of those 2 subsequent submission attempts, right? If he were being malicious, he'd have held him unconscious again, right? So here's what I think they did. Rightly or wrongly, here's what I think they did. They started off by putting the guy unconscious. Once the guy is unconscious, they revive him, so now he's kind of in a little bit of a stupor. He's just recovering, and then they continue training with him, right? Why? Well, maybe what they're doing is they're testing his ability to think when he's under that type of duress. Maybe it's a testing method. I don't know, right? That's not something I would do, but I can kind of see what's going on there. And I may be wrong, but that's what I see, right? And if you really think about it, maybe it's a hazing thing even. Maybe it's because he's got 4 stripes on his white belt. Maybe he's about to get his blue belt. So just like how you have the gauntlet, right? Getting whacked, and you guys saw my gauntlet video. I'm not into that either. But maybe it's a hazing thing and if that's the case, not something I would do. But maybe it's a thing where, when you're about to get a new color in your belt, you get passed out. And once you get passed out, then you got to go through this whole drill. It's a stupid thing, but if that's the reason, I'm not into it. But if the reason was maybe let's see how you react when you're in that situation, right? When you're not alert, you don't have 100% of your senses going for you, and you have to be able to train and fight back. Then okay, that would make sense. right? In fact, I just got done talking with Ginny. Ginny just had her ACL replaced on one of her legs, right? Ginny does our taping videos, right? She's our physical therapist. And she was asking about, stuff that she can do. And I said, look, everywhere else in your body is good. It's just where your leg is, right? It's been about 12 weeks or so since she's gotten the repair, and she's waiting for it to kind of hold, right? So she's got to be really careful about training. Well, of course, she's not going to do full-on training, but she can train herself handicapped, meaning train on one side, the side where she can move, right? Because why? Let's say you're in a fight. There's not going to be a situation where you're always at 100%. There's going to be a time at which you get injured, right? If you're always used to fighting at 100% and you're never able to fight injured, then how can you possibly expect to do it, right? On the other hand, let's say you do get hurt. Let's say you do get literally knocked out, and as you're coming to, you find this guy still wants to fight with you, right? You need to know how to continue the fight, right? If you look back, Helio Gracie, in his fight with Kimura, he actually was passed out, he says, right? Kimura had a case of gatame on him, and he cranked his head up and put all the pressure on his chest, and Helio said, luckily for him, he didn't close his eyes when he passed out. He passed out with his eyes open, so Kimura didn't know that he had knocked him out. So what happened was Kimura just kind of pulled it, thought he'd be out. No, his eyes are open. He released the hold, blood went right back into Helio's head, and he just continued to fight. Maybe that was the situation that was going on there. Maybe they thought, let's knock you out, and then let's see where you are after that. If that's the case, then I can see why they're doing it. Like I said, not something I would do, but I can see why they're doing it, and I can see that there may be, at least from their point of view, there may be some value in doing something like that, right? Maybe they want to try to replicate what happened to Helio Gracie, and how Helio Gracie was able to continue fighting despite that, right? Being able to fight despite the adversity of getting injured or getting knocked out, and then coming back and then being able to fight, there is some value in it. Right? It just needs to be determined what your goal is by training. If your goal is to train for competition or for sport, then yeah, you're not going to do it injured. But if you're in a situation where you're actually in a fight and you have to fight for your life, then injury, whatever, it doesn't matter. You're going to keep fighting. Well, then you should learn how to fight handicapped. Handicapped in some way, whether it be your cognitive senses, whether it be your arm, put your arm in your belt, fight one arm as if you got a broken arm. In fact, I think that's what Gio Omori did when he fought Carlos Gracie Sr. He got his arm broken, but he continued to fight. He just simply put his arm away and he continued to fight Carlos Gracie to a draw, at which point Carlos thought to himself, that was actually pretty amazing that he did that. And that's how the Gracies started training like that, right? Training handicapped. It's not just for to make your skills better, it's also to simulate a situation where you may not have use of that particular body part or sensibility, right? So I'm not defending what they did. All I'm saying is everybody take a step back and take a deep breath and try not to judge, and try to get the whole story before you decide to make a snap judgment and say this is incredibly brutal or it's wrong or whatever, because you weren't there and you don't know what's going on. So, and I'm not trying to be politically correct here, because people who know me know I'm probably the least politically correct person. You see Rusty laughing right next to the camera there, right? But I'm not one to make any snap judgments, and and I would hope that none of you would as well. Right? And there were some other incidents that people would always ask me to comment on, and they look at it only from one point of view. One had to do with that fight that the Gracie brothers got into with some other guy in Brazil, some guy that they say beat Carlos Gracie Sr. or Helio or whoever, and they say that the Gracies then jumped him. I don't know, right? I never commented on it because I don't know the whole story. Why? Because shoot, that was like 80 years ago. Was I there? Absolutely not. And neither were you. So, you're going off of one video that you saw that went viral on YouTube, and all the Gracie haters went and jumped on it, right? The Valenti brothers did a great video on this, where they actually went to the old newspaper clippings that came out talking about that particular event that was reported on by the reporters of the day, right? And interviewed eyewitnesses and all that kind of stuff. So I think that would be a better way to look at it. And don't go in with a prejudgment. Don't go in saying this is what happened. Go in saying what happened. And look at all sides, look at all data, and then draw a conclusion. And just realize that your conclusion is academic, because it doesn't matter what you think, right? It doesn't matter because the event's already happened. So same with this training that we'd seen. You know, I try not to make any judgments. I just try to think what happened, and I did. I looked into it and I said, okay, I think in my mind this is what I think happened. But if it didn't and I'm wrong, so what? If I'm right, so what? It doesn't affect anybody anyway, right? Another one had to do with that whole incident where a student of RICKSON's, former student now, he got kicked out because some other people were saying that the guy was a child predator, right? You know, there's a lot of back and forth on that too. But, you know, and I talked to Dave Kama about this, and, you know, him being one of RICKSON's black belts. And we just decided to stay out of it, right? It's not, you know, and then people would come back, well, you're staying out of it, but you should have an opinion because, you know, you're coming down from RICKSON's line, and you know, Dave is a RICKSON black belt. And no, we don't have an opinion because we weren't there. We don't know all the circumstances. And, you know, and I think, unfortunately, it probably might have done some damage to RICKSON in the short run. And I think it was unwarranted on my end, but then again, I'm not a judge here, and but I think some other people might have not asked what happened. They just looked at what they heard and what they read on Facebook and said, this is what happened, without being there firsthand. So at any rate, so I just wanted to comment on this particular video, and you know, whatever you feel on this, to me, it doesn't matter, but I thought I just should get some comments out here. And if you have any comments, just go ahead and put them below, and we'll go from there. Anyway, thanks for watching. Happy training. Subscribe and hit the like button. Bye-bye now.